You know how you sometimes come across these pieces of ancient wisdom, and they just sound completely, totally impractical for the world we live in? Like, not just naive, but maybe even a little dangerous? Well, today we're going to tackle one of the most famous examples of this and pull back the curtain on a pretty profound secret about power that's been hiding in plain sight.
Turn the other cheek. Yeah, we all know the phrase, right? It's a cornerstone of Christian ethics. But let's be real. In our world of competition, of conflict, of just basic self-preservation, it sounds like a recipe for getting walked all over. How is that not a massive paradox in the world we actually live in? So which one is it? Is this just some naive advice from a bygone era, basically a call to be a doormat? Or is it a coded instruction pointing to a kind of power that operates on a completely different level than anything we're used to? Okay, let's really get into this.
To get our heads around this, we have to make a really crucial shift in our thinking. And the first key is realizing that sayings like this, they aren't rules for your ego to follow. No, there's something else entirely. See, this is where we need a total reframe. Our ego hears, turn the other cheek, and it immediately processes that as a tactical rule, a command to grit your teeth and suppress your natural urge to fight back. But that was never the original point. It wasn't a rule to follow, it was a description of a different state of being, a state where retaliation isn't suppressed, it's just irrelevant. The whole me versus you drama has just kind of dissolved.
So, okay, if it isn't about passivity, what is it about? Well, this brings us to a whole different kind of power, one that flows from a state of being we can call unity consciousness.
And unity consciousness isn't just some nice idea or a belief that, we are all one. It's a lived, felt experience where that hard boundary between me and not me starts to get porous. And when that happens, the whole category of enemy just loses its meaning, because there's no separate me for there to be an enemy too.
The power that flows from this state is inclusive, not coercive. Think about that for a second. Coercive power, the kind our world pretty much runs on, is like a fist meeting a fist. It has to win to prove it even exists. But inclusive power, it's like trying to surprise the ocean with a wave. The ocean doesn't resist, it just absorbs the wave because the wave was already a part of it. Your opposition can't find an ego to hook into, there's no hostility to mirror, and a lot of the time it just collapses.
But, and this is super important, let's be very, very clear here so nobody misunderstands. This is not about physical invulnerability. On some high metaphysical level, sure, all is one. But here in our lived reality, harm and ignorance are very real. I mean, history is filled with sages who were imprisoned, hurt, or even killed. Unity consciousness doesn't make you bulletproof. It just fundamentally changes how you experience and respond to the world, not whether the world can act on your physical body.
So if that's the path for an individual, what about on a bigger scale? Let's zoom out for a second. What if our entire world, with all its conflict and separation, what if it isn't some kind of cosmic mistake, but actually a necessary phase of development?
I mean, that is such a profound idea, right? That all the separation, all the conflict, all the friction, it might actually be serving a purpose. It's the very thing that allows for self-reflective awareness to emerge in the first place. It's like humanity had to experience itself as fragmented in order to consciously and freely choose to return to a state of integration.
And what's truly stunning is when you look across the major world traditions, they all seem to be pointing toward the same future. You've got Judaism's vision in Isaiah, Christianity's new heaven and new earth, the Hindu Satya Yuga that comes after Kalki, the coming of Maitreya in Buddhism, and the era of the Mahdi and Jesus in Islam. I mean, they all describe a future where a fundamental shift in consciousness basically makes conflict and harm obsolete. The language is different, but the arrow is pointing in the exact same direction.
Now, the Islamic tradition offers a really crucial safeguard here. It puts a huge emphasis on the idea that you can't just leapfrog your way to unity. Justice is the necessary bridge. And why is that? Because a unity that ignores injustice, one that bypasses real ethical growth, is a false unity. It's brittle. It's just papering over the cracks instead of actually healing them.
Okay, so this all sounds very grand and civilizational, but what about us? You and me? How can an individual actually walk this path without falling into some really common traps?
Well, there are two major pitfalls. First is the spiritual ego. That's when you take these incredible insights and you build a new, special identity around them. The other one is spiritual bypassing. That's when you use concepts like it's all one to avoid dealing with real-world problems, your own difficult emotions, or actual injustice.
And trust me, both of them are total dead ends.
So how do we actually navigate this? Well, a really powerful framework comes from the philosopher Hegel, the dialectic. It's simple, really. You start with a thesis, that's you, right now, your identity, your values. Then life comes along and presents an antithesis, that's friction, challenges, anything that pushes against you. The real work is to hold that tension until a synthesis emerges, a new, more integrated state of being that has absorbed the lesson from the friction. You've grown.
And this connects directly to another one of those famous, often misunderstood sayings, pick up your cross daily. When you see it through this lens, the cross suddenly isn't a punishment. It's a symbol for the dialectic itself. The vertical beam is your thesis, your self. The horizontal beam is the antithesis, life's friction. And picking it up daily, that means consciously, actively engaging with that friction as the very engine of your own growth.
But here's the thing. Carrying the cross, that conscious effort of working with all this friction, that is not the final destination. It's just the training ground for what comes next.
This is so important. That dialectical practice, the daily work of integration, it's the process that builds the maturity and the strength you need. But the goal is to get to a point where that conscious effort isn't even necessary anymore.
And that final stage is described perfectly by the Taoist concept of Wu Wei. It's often translated as non-doing, but it's really more like effortless, non-forced action. It's the state where your actions arise spontaneously and perfectly from your alignment with the whole. You stop strategizing how to be like water, you simply are water.
In this state, the very source of your actions shifts. That separate, struggling self is no longer in the driver's seat. Instead, some deeper, universal intelligence, call it the Tao, the I Am, spirit, whatever works for you, is resolving friction moment by moment. It's not that conflict disappears, it's that it no longer has a chance to build up, because it's being integrated in real time.
And that brings us to this really beautiful final image for the journey. The cross, that symbol of conscious struggle and integration, it's not something you have to carry forever. It's the scaffolding. And once the building is complete, once that state of effortless alignment is stable, you don't need the scaffolding anymore. The cross just dissolves when its work is done.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What if every challenge, every conflict, every single bit of resistance you face in your life isn't actually an obstacle getting in your way? What if it's the essential ingredient, the very fuel required to discover a deeper, more effortless, and ultimately a more powerful way of being?